Hi, everybody. Welcome to Waterside Chats. And we're here with Ghassan Korban, who is the head of the Sewage and Water Board. The last time we got together was my first time meeting him. And now I feel like we're old friends because we've gotten together a few times.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful.
So you've had a rough go lately, right?
Well, it's par for the course.
It is.
It's a day in utility, you know.
So we had the August 7th, August 8th citywide boil water advisory, and people go, another one? I looked at how many boil water advisories we've had this year. I went back, there were 7 of them, only one citywide boil water advisory. Some of the others were neighborhoods like New Orleans East, Bywater, Claiborne, one uptown. But you have to go back to 2018 for another citywide boil water advisory. And then if you go 2010 to 2018, there were 7. So you've had a significant improvement. What did you do?
So those statistics that you just shared, Margaret, do tell the story and reflect all the improvements that we've been making for several years. So the fact that we haven't had a boil water advisory for the last 5 or 6 years is because we have been making a lot of improvements, specifically water towers. We have built 2 water towers since 2018 and 2019, and those have been significant help in terms of creating a supply of water and ability to maintain pressure in the system when do we have a failure. So we've had multiple situations where those water towers did their job and maintained the pressure and supplied water into the system without anybody knowing. Unfortunately, what happened on August 6th is that we had an unfortunate and freaky accident that really curtailed the process that we have got so good at in terms of responding and mitigating any loss of pressure. And unfortunate, obviously, and it really created such a distraction for everybody else who was on site, and did not allow them to do their job within the allowable time, which is typically 40 minutes, which what the water towers do in terms of water supply and pressure. So exceeding the 40 minutes is what really caused that pressure to drop in the system. And then obviously as by rule and by law, in terms of the Louisiana Department of Health, we have to call for a precautionary boil water advisory.
And in fact, the water was back on within 50 minutes. So it was just 10 minutes past that 40 minutes that the water towers gave you.
Absolutely. The water was back on, but it's just that time where the pressure was below 20, and it doesn't matter if it's a second or 15 minutes. We call that the system is compromised, and there's that minute chance that some foreign object or contaminated water entering the system, causing obviously alarm and concern for us. That's why we had to take a lot of samples, over 100 samples, and make sure that there's no danger in the water and no exposure to our customers.
And in fact, there were just a couple of places where you did have bacteria show up.
Right. 24 hours after the first samples taken, we found 2 out of the 99, actually, which really was enough for us to extend the boil water advisory. And then once we got the all clear, about 5 or 6 hours after that.
Right. So obviously things have gotten better. You do have the water towers, but what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Well, again, we have a lot of safeguards in place already. And beyond the water towers, we also have refurbished all the pumps that we have in the plant and so they are more dependable and more efficient at what they do. But one thing that still remains in terms of improvement and minimizing those situations from happening again is removing our connection to the city grid, the energy power lines that serve everybody else, and moving us to the transmission lines that are adjacent to our plant. And by doing so, we will be connected through the substation that we just built to the transmission lines that are much harder and less susceptible to situations like the ones we faced on August 6th.
So you need this power complex to ensure that reliable power to your Carrollton Avenue pumping station.
Absolutely. So it's not just the power itself. I mean, obviously, you know, the dependability of that power is critical, but it's also less vulnerable
Right.
to a mylar balloon or a car hitting a pole and, you know, knocking a pole down, which it has happened before, causing outage, and then, you know, again, initiating the protocol for us to mitigate and respond and restore the pumping. So once that happens, and we hope that happens, you know, obviously, you know, sooner rather than later, the whole situation is just much more durable
Stable.
and stable. Yeah.
So wait, I've got to mention, you know, the headline was Mylar balloon takes out sewage and water board. Wait. Across the country last year, 582 incidences of Mylar balloons shutting down power. So these Mylar balloons are a big issue, but, you know, y'all had everything in order with the two water towers able to give you 40 minutes to get ready. You had an employee who was injured and had to be cared for first.
Absolutely.
And that was your big concern. And now it was a big power surge, basically, pressure increased, and that's what caused the injury,
Right.
correct?
The surge was very short-lived, but it caused all our pumps to trip offline,
Right.
as they are designed to do so.
Exactly.
To protect themselves from further damage. And again, the system has a lot of safeguards, is very hardened, and you know, want our customers to be rest assured that we have done a lot of improvements
Right.
to avoid these situations, and we would have done just the same.
Yeah.
And just that, had we not had the unfortunate accident that obviously caused, you know, damage to or injuries to one of our employees.
So if you do not get this power complex and you have to rely on that 25 cycle power, are we going to continue to have more power outages that could cause boil water advisories?
Well, I mean, the past tells us that there's a pattern. And although, you know, obviously unpredictable, we stand ready to mitigate that. And
Right.
again, you know, the one accident is what caused this whole thing. So if we pray to God that doesn't happen again, and we have taken a lot of measures
Right.
to avoid that from happening again, and we're continuing to do a lot of analysis as to what may have caused it. Situation, and obviously avoid it completely. So, you know, in that interim period where we are, you know, eventually will be connected to the much more hardened lines, we are in a good position to mitigate and respond
Good.
in a timely fashion.
So here's a question. There is all kinds of stuff in our water today. We've got this new thing. It's called PFAS.
PFAS. It's microchemicals or forever chemicals. Man-made, yeah, microplastics rather, and they exist everywhere. And one of our obligation is to do testing consistent with EPA rules and thresholds to make sure that we don't exceed any certain limits. And so far, our region has tested low.
Right.
In terms of, which is a good thing. So that means we do not have to do any mitigation or any improvement in the way we filter water. However, we want to get ahead of the game and be ready if things change, the environment around us change, or the thresholds are lowered, where would determine that we need to take action. We want to be ready to be able to filter the water to higher standards if that case happens. So we are in the midst of a water quality master plan to study what new technology we might bring to our system to allow us to filter water in a much more advanced way.
Lake Charles is an area that has high of these man-made chemicals, and there are a lot of places around the country where it's high. But here in southeast Louisiana right now, we're looking pretty good.
Right.
So one of the big concerns, and you were on the air recently talking about this, lead in the pipes. You know, New Orleans is a very old city, and we still have lead.
Absolutely, it's a national issue or challenge. Lead in the in soil, lead in paint are the two major sources of lead, but lead in water is also a source of lead poisoning. And where that comes from is the lead service lines. It's that one tiny pipe that carries water from the water main to your house.
Right.
There's a vast number of them across the city because lead was allowed for many years. It was not prohibited till about 82 in the city of New Orleans. So there's thousands of them that are still in the ground carrying water. And what happens is the leaching of the lead in the water is what introduces lead and carries it into your faucet, and obviously you're subject to consuming that. What we do is we take a lot of precautionary measures. We do a lot of corrosion control. We add chemicals to the water as it leaves our plant in order to coat the pipes and minimize the leaching of the lead in the water. It's not 100%, and that's why we do a lot of sampling on regular basis to gauge the level of lead across the city. We have designated houses that or homes that we test on regular basis to kind of see if there's any pattern, if there's any trend. The key here, or the final solution or ultimate solution, is to remove those lead lines. Right. So we have been working very hard on identifying source of funding, and it's a tremendous amount of cost associated with removing. It could be north of 50,000 lines across the city. So the cost is going to be significant. However, we have identified one source of funding that's going to bring us about $84 million, which is less than 10% of the overall cost, but it's enough for us to launch a program, which we intend to do in the first quarter of 2025. And what that entails is going in and prioritizing across the city what lead lines we need to do, because we can't do them all all at the same time. And we have 10 years to remove all of them by law, by EPA rule, which is coming down basically in its final form in October of this year. So as of 2027, we have 10 years to remove all the lines, no matter how many they are. So we're going to get a head start using the $84 million that through a loan that we're getting from the state to launch that program and allow us to do 1,700 to 2,000 a year as early as next year, and obviously start to get the lead out of the ground. One key nuance here is that the lead exists between the main, through the meter, to the house. The portion between the meter and the main is our property and our responsibility. The other portion is private property.
And so that's hard on some people.
Absolutely.
They don't have money. It's an old house.
So here's what we're doing. And because the EPA is allowing us to do that, they want us to do a full replacement. A partial replacement does not count as a solution, logically, right? Because if you leave half of it, it's still there. So we are using the money that we are getting from the state through the EPA, from the EPA rather through the state, is to spend the money on the private property portion. So to accomplish a full replacement. So we're very excited about that.
That's
and we're hoping that
Ghassan.
people appreciate that effort and allow us on their property to remove that health concern once and for all.
So a newer house won't have that issue because everything's already been changed.
Yeah,
it's the
correct.
older homes.
Yes. Yeah.
Ghassan, that's wonderful. We're switching gears here. You have a new customer portal that's pretty incredible. Tell me how it works.
So that portal is associated with the smart meter program.
Right.
And as you know, we've launched that late last year, and then it's tracking very well. We're about 40,000 smart meters installed. and the hope is to do 70,000 by the end of the year, and that represents about half of the overall population. That's very exciting. It's a game changer because obviously that brings timeliness and accuracy to our bills, and we all know that that hasn't been consistent and
Right.
hasn't been right for a handful of years. So we're very excited about that. Now, with that comes a customer portal, as you said, that will create an opportunity for our customers to have real-time monitoring of their own consumption. So they'll have access to their individual account and consumption. So you can do things like you can put a limit on how much water you want to use daily, and if you pass that, if you exceed that, it will flag it. You can learn more about your habits. How long do you water, when you water your plants, whether you're filling a swimming pool, and how much that actually adds. And more importantly, because the private infrastructure is as old as our old infrastructure. We're an old city, and if you think our mains leak, so do the pipes on the private properties. So that portal is going to tell you in real time when you have a leak, because if you're not using any water and you can read and you can tell that there's a constant registration or consumption, that should tell you that there's some water going somewhere that obviously costing you money. So that feature alone is going to obviously allow you to act and avoid all these unnecessary costs. So this is a game changer.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. And it's very accurate. So you truly have a good idea of what's happening, and you know how much it's going to cost you. And,
Yep.
Ghassan, that's wonderful.
That is wonderful. The word accurate is key here, because the old meters had probably some water going through it undetected.
Gotcha.
These new meters will detect every single drop of water that goes through. And so obviously the consumption will be accurately measured, but it also will allow you to detect, a running toilet, for example, that typically it goes unnoticed unless you're right there and watching it. So that's going to be an awesome feature, and hopefully our customers will take advantage of it.
Oh, I'm excited
Yeah,
about it.
me
I'm
too.
going to. Okay, so last year was a long, hot summer. I mean, we were 30 inches of rain below average for the summer. We had 17 100-degree days. It was brutal. People were watering their yards all the time. People with pools, we need to talk about that, because there's something a credit that they get. But now this summer, we're kind of beginning to feel the same way. July, 4 inches of rain above average. Now we're down in August, 4 inches of rain below average. We've had highs in the mid to the upper 90s. How does this high usage of water impact the Sewage and Water Board?
Well, obviously, it's a mixed bag when it rains versus doesn't rain. In our city,
I know, you get drained.
From a drainage perspective, we don't want it to rain, because
Right.
obviously it's always a concern, and it costs us money because we
Flooding,
haven't.
yeah.
It costs us money because we pump water. So,
Right.
but that aside, obviously we want people to conserve. We don't want people to take water for granted. And although we enjoy the mighty Mississippi as our source of water, we learned a lesson last year where we had that saltwater intrusion
Exactly.
and really compromising the water quality that we use, that raw water that we use to filter and provide you with the clean
Right.
water at your faucet. So, obviously the hotter it is, the more water consumption, and we have the capability of, matching that demand. We have peak demands, whether it's big events in the city, whatever the case may be. If it's a Super Bowl, it's Essence Fest, or whatever brings a lot of that causes
A big demand.
A big demand on us,
Right.
and we have been able to satisfy that demand. What we want people to do is be thoughtful about how much water they use, because
Right.
obviously it costs money. I'm in the business of making money and selling money. Water, but at the same time, I do want them to conserve. I want them to appreciate what it takes to make that water, and as we bring them to their home. So.
So if you have a garden, as I do, water early in the morning so the plants can absorb the water before they get the heat. And if you have a pool, there's something that they need to know.
Absolutely. So on your water bill, you have typically two charges associated with water. It's a drinking water, so the water you consume, but also sewer charges associated with the water that returns to our system, so we can collect it, convey it to our wastewater treatment plant, and treat it before we return it safely back to the environment. So if you're filling a pool, typically that water obviously stays there. It doesn't enter the system. So we can give you credit on, we charge you for the water you use to fill the pool, but we deduct or we do not charge you for the water that in terms of your sewer charges. So you can save some money if you actively tell us in advance, so we can keep track of that.
I don't have a pool. I go to Treme. They have a great water aerobics program. If you haven't gone, you should go. Company culture. So over at the Sewage and Water Board, you have employees who've been there a long time, kind of like I was at WDSU, and you value these employees. Plus, what they're doing now is they are working with their long-term knowledge to modernize the Sewage and Water Board. What are they doing?
Well, and that's a great topic, and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about in terms of the culture, the institutional knowledge, and I don't just value, I love the people who work for us, and the range that our folks are responsible for. You go from a routine, mundane, just treating the water every day, to a crisis or disaster. And we have a lot of battle-tested folks that give me so much comfort, and hopefully our customers so much confidence in our ability to manage these crises. So the balance is, how do we tap into their institutional knowledge, the dedication, the loyalty, and then bring them forward and lift them up and invest in them to stay with us and learn new skills and embrace technology and automation. An example is the power complex. We are going to decommission our boilers. We're going to decommission our turbines. And those are old machines, as you know, and require a lot of skill and knowledge and experience, right? So these folks have been instrumental in allowing us to use these old machines so successfully, often. So we're departing from that, right? And we're putting them in charge of a modern system that is automated, where you need more technology and appreciation of how things are run, at a more automated fashion. So we are urging and doing everything we can to bring these very experienced folks and having embraced the technology, so we can gain both, right? The institutional knowledge, as well as obviously the new technology that would help them do a better job at the new positions that they're going to have.
So I've got to tell you, I learned that hand tracking, new challenges when I was at WDSU was really what made the job so exciting. And I know they're going to feel the same way too. When you've got new toys to play with, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just saying.
You take even the smart meter program, right? So now we will not need meter readers anymore, right? So that manual process will go away. But new opportunities lie ahead for these folks who can, they become technicians, because these smart meters will need maintenance, will need upkeep, they need monitoring. So it will become a much more fun, more involved, and likely higher paying job, and more stimulating.
Yeah, so, higher paying.
Yeah,
we always
it's a
like that.
Win-win for everybody.
So you have long-term projects. We've already talked about the new chemicals that are in the water, and we've talked about the lead in the wires. You also have concerns for saltwater intrusion and for backflow prevention.
Absolutely. So, these are ongoing projects. Obviously, the saltwater intrusion was a new concept for us in terms of the threat it creates, right? So what we're trying to do here is study the impact of salt, higher levels of salt, saline or salt in the water on the system itself. I mean, we can say for a day, don't drink the water, for example, you can bathe in it, but what impact would that salt water have on the system itself from a corrosion perspective? Could it harm the pipes? Could it harm machinery? So we're doing a lot of analysis as we speak now, simulating a high level of water circumstance and see what their ramifications might be. We're also looking at technology that will allow us to maybe treat a low level of salt versus like an ocean level, the 30,000 parts per billion versus maybe 500. So we're looking for technologies that we can implement or utilize to allow us to mitigate situations where you have a temporary situation with high levels of water.
So down by Port Sulphur, they had a lot of salt water and could not drink the water. They were with bottled water. Did you see what kind of corrosion took place there? Because that would kind of be a good indicator.
Right. We are in communication with our counterparts in other parts of the state, further down the river to see what analysis they've done. I don't have a first-hand access to that, but we do have, document sharing and experience sharing with them to learn about, the impacts of that. Yes.
So it's hard to believe. Katrina, almost 2 decades ago. I mean, people have grown up without having experienced Katrina, which is crazy to me. But there have been a lot of developments since then. I mean, the water towers, major developments, but you've got this infrastructure going on where you are rebuilding and putting in new pipes. That's a joint venture with the city. What's going on with that? Because to me, that's one of the most important things. Our infrastructure was kind of crumbling. We need new pipes. We need to make sure that everything is working well, and it's happening.
Absolutely. So, in collaboration or partnership with the city, we both received what we call FEMA settlement money to allow us to do a lot of repairs and replacements of damaged infrastructure due to Katrina. So that has been going on for about 5 or 6 years. In partnership again.
Only 5 or 6. It should have been longer, right?
It should have been longer, but in earnest, really, it started, 2017, 2018. And we've been steadily doing a lot of work, a lot of water main replacements, a lot of sewer main replacements, storm sewers, as well as obviously roadway and sidewalks and all the improvements that you see.
We do need that
everywhere.
Help.
So obviously that's been very, very critical. Replacing all these vulnerable infrastructure. That's why you see so many water main breaks or leaks, because these mains have been compromised and they're also old. So it's a combination of both.
But that does cause the low water pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
And, which you may not get a boil water advisory, but you've got low water pressure,
absolutely.
Which causes
One
issues.
Compromised water main, through a hydrant. That's hit by a vehicle or just a water main break that just a piece explodes and blows up, and then there you have it. You have a drop in pressure, and that's why we're trying to get ahead of it. But what's also lost on people is that we've been doing a lot of investment and improvements in the plant, or even pumping stations. I mean, at one point, not all the pumps were working, and now we have anywhere between 90 and 95 that typically are available and operational. And that's a great statistics, but that didn't happen by accident. That happened due to a lot of attention given to refurbishment of these pumps. We also have replaced all the drinking water pumps at Kerton Water Plant. So that reliability factor, has improved dramatically. I mean, the 4 pumps that turned off, August 6th.
I know.
They were doing their job, perfectly, and they were going to be turned back on and again, restore pressure in no pump.
And you never would have known except that you had an employee who was injured.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it would have worked.
But the point also is that in the past, some of these pumps would trip offline. They were even hard to start. They would
Right.
break on their own. So now we have that reliability situation in terms of those pumps are dependable. They have variable speeds, not to get too technical, but where they
Right.
can compensate for some loss of pressure by kicking in faster and pumping more water. So it's been modernized, and
Yeah.
that's a huge improvement that people take for granted, right? But when people say, "What have you been doing?" That all these
You've been
silent,
busy.
very busy, and improving things. One piece of equipment at a time.
So wait, this is something people may not realize. We have 70 miles of water lines that have been replaced, another 30 miles under construction, and 178 miles of sewer pipes have been fortified. So in the past 6 years, you've kind of brought us into a new century, right?
Well, I mean, we started what should have been going on for years. I mean, when you have half the population of your water mains, in excess of, I think we have 1,600, so 800 miles of pipes that are 80 years or older. It's going to take many more years to steadily, 30, 40 miles a year to just move this old population into newer pipes, and then obviously improve the quality of life in the city.
But it's
So
happening.
it is happening.
It is
It's
happening.
and it needs to continue to happen. And the settlement money is dwindling down. I mean, we're
From
almost-
Katrina.
From Katrina, we're running out of that money. It's almost fully consumed.
Yeah.
So at one point, we need to find a new source of funding to continue with the same successful effort.
Well, let's hope we don't have another hurricane. Are we ready?
And we are ready. We have 70 megawatts of power. I mean, a huge departure from a handful of years where we had maybe one or two sources of power at less than 10 megawatts. So tremendous amount of redundancy that we have in the system. It's an old piece of equipment that we want to decommission as
Right.
soon as the power complex is fully online, which is slated to be in next year. But in the
And
meantime,
you
we're
want
in a
an
good place.
emergency headquarters kind of in that power complex so that when we do get this really rough weather, everybody is there. They're all working together in that complex. That's what we need,
Absolutely.
correct?
We have part of our design is an operations center that houses everybody who's involved in managing a disaster or a crisis. Being in the same room, communicating, being on the same page is, as you know, is very critical. Making those decisions in alignment with everybody else. So it's going to be a game changer for us in terms of now where we're scattered, communicating by phone. We make it work. But there's definitely a better way to do it, and we're hoping to accomplish that in a year or two.
Oh, I know you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Ghassan Korban, head of the New Orleans Sewage and Water Board. This is our Waterside Chats, and I always love visiting with you. It's really been great getting to know you.
Thank you. Same here.
Okay.
Yeah.